Yeah, you're right. We hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, and if you're a native New Orleanian, we want you to go to your phone right now and call 486-7311 and support programs about New Orleans. We decided we'd get a challenge grant going here, but first let me tell you about these special gifts we have to offer. If you'll call in at the $40 membership level, we'll send out to you the Short History of New Orleans with Mel Levitt. As a short history award-winning broadcaster and journalist, Mel Levitt traces the Crescent City story from its heroic founding of the swamps where God never intended a city to be built through its sometimes confused colonial heritage and its bouts with Yellow Jacket and wars and piracy and racial and social upheavals. And that's the history of New Orleans, and that's for $40. And if you'll pledge $60 or $5 a month, we'll send out the sturdy WYES tote bag. But this is what we're going to do. When you call in and make your pledge, we want to know if you're from the 9th Ward, if you're from the 3rd Ward, if you're from the Garden District, if you're from the Irish Channel, if you're from the 7th Ward. I'm from Lakeview. I was born and raised in Lakeview. If you're from Mid-City, let us know that too. But you have to call 486-7311. Let us know you enjoyed the program by making a pledge of support. Tonight's New Orleans night. You know, a lot of people have knocked native New Orleanians after they come down here. And tonight is our night to show the city of New Orleans that New Orleans will support its public television station. Because after all, we are here from New Orleans, and we're here for you, the community. So give us a call at 486-7311. If you're from Lakeview, if you're from Gretna, if you're from Uptown, the 7th Ward, the Irish Channel, we want to hear from you now. Remember, $40, you'll get the History of New Orleans by Mel Levitt, $60 WYES tote bag, and you can do that in $5 a month installments. And be sure when you make your pledge to let us know where you're from, and we're going to let you know at the end of this break who wins, where they're coming from. Let's see, we got somebody from Uptown right there. So call us right now at 486-7311. Right now we have a foreigner in the studio with us who has some more to tell you. He's from Iowa, but we're going to throw it over to him anyway. And by the way, I'd like to tell you that everybody that's answering the phones here tonight is from New Orleans, and we're waiting to take your call. If you're from New Orleans too, and if you like Yeah, You're Right, call us and let us know. Right now I'm going to throw it over to Mike Labonia. Mike?
Okay, thank you, Beth. The first one I want to tell you is we have a goal for today. Our goal is to try to raise $9,000. Now, you know, we have our festival going on, and each day we have a goal. So today's goal is $9,000, and so far, before this break, we had $2,605. So we're about a third of the way there. Now, this is a good way for all the local New Orleanians to show how important or what your response is on New Orleans night, because you know, we have a night when we have nature, and we have a night when we have the cultural programs on, and those programs, you know, they'll bring in $10,000 or something around this same kind of average. So we're very, very confident that the people from New Orleans in the New Orleans area will do the same thing. Now, the operators are here. Go to the phones. That's a marvelous program, and the style that it was done, the story being told through the people, it's really a very, very fine program. That's just one of many, many programs about New Orleans that you can see on Channel 12. We have some other ones coming up too, but those will be coming up in the future. And as I said before this show, we're really doing programs about New Orleans on an ongoing basis, and they're all the time, and we know that the audience loves them. I bet forgot to mention the people in Gretna too. So if you're from Gretna, call up, tell the operators, and when we get all finished, we're going to come back and we're going to say this many people from the 9th Ward, from the Mid-City area, wherever they call in. So call in and have your area represented. You know, no matter where you're watching Channel 12 from, we want you to know how important you are to us. If you get our signal and enjoy the programs on Channel 12, call now and pledge your support so that quality programming like the one we just saw continues. We're only as good as the support we receive. All of our viewers are important to us, and that includes you. If Channel 12 is important to you, let us know by calling and giving us your vote of confidence. So, you know, if you live in Morgan City or Houma, Hammond, Slidell, Thibodaux, Covington, Gulfport, Biloxi, New Orleans, we get mail from all those areas. People write in, they comment about our programs, they have program suggestions for us. So if you're one of them and you're a regular viewer of Channel 12 or even a new viewer to Channel 12, I think tonight will give you the indication of the kind of programming that you can see on this station. Channel 12's locally produced programs are often honored for their integrity and their professionalism. We're always striving to produce programs that will be of interest to our viewers, and at the same time, Channel 12 tries to inform, educate, and entertain you. Some of our local programs include the very, very wonderful Informed Sources, which is a program made up of panelists of the various media people who appear and analyze and discuss what's happening in the news, and they do it in great detail. We have Varsity Quiz Bowl, a show that's been going on for years and years and years. Occasionally we have like little reunions, or we have people who come back and they'll mention, 15 years ago I appeared on the Quiz Bowl myself, and it was a very, very fulfilling and worthwhile experience. The Anderson File. First-rate journalists like Richard Anderson has done reports that include not only programs in this area, but even programs in Central America. Talking about taxes, where we help you, where you can call in, where you can get free advice on the changes in the income taxes, the great chefs, the nurses, and many, many more. So let's go back over to Beth. She's right in the center of all those telephones. It sounds like there's a lot of ringing going on. Beth, what's happening?
Thanks a lot, Mike. We could have some more ringing. You know what puzzles me is that I'm looking around and there are calls from like Thibodaux and Madisonville, and we're not getting any calls from the 9th Ward or the 3rd Ward. We haven't received any calls from the Garden District. The Irish Channel has 2 or 3. But if you're from the 7th Ward or Gretna, where's that from? Homa. We have people from Homa calling. This is the New Orleans Neighborhood Challenge time. So if you're from Uptown, Lakeview, the West Bank, Gretna, Mid-City, 7th Ward, Irish Channel, call up and be counted right now. We're your public television station, New Orleans, and can only continue to be here and produce programs about New Orleans with you. Remember, $40 membership level will send out the History of New Orleans by Mel Levitt. And it's full. It's a short history of New Orleans in a capsule version. It's easy reading, $40 membership level, or the $60 membership level. The WYES tote bag. I'm especially proud of New Orleans Night because I'm a native New Orleanian and I work here at WYES. And tonight is sort of like my night. We have Nature Night and we have Science Night and we have kids programs. And I always like to have a New Orleans Night in our membership drive to show that the people of New Orleans will support programs from New Orleans. And you came through last August, and now we're hoping that you're going to come through again, and it looks like the phones are picking up. But I really want to get this challenge grant going, because if you're from the 9th Ward, give us a call. We had a lot of people from the 9th Ward on the program. The Garden District, if you're from Uptown, if you're from Lakeview, we haven't heard from any of those places yet. The Irish Channel's coming in ahead of everybody else right now. Are there more people in the Irish Channel who like to watch public television? I don't know. Maybe so. We'll let you know. But call in right now. It's very important. Right now, I'd like to thank a few people who have called in. Maybe these are your neighbors. Daniel Andrus out in Metairie, Marion Caesar Shelley of New Orleans, Betty Barnes in New Orleans, Bobby Lee of New Orleans, Mickey Pfeffer of Thibodaux, Mary Snowden of Bogalusa, Shirley Singsong of Belle Chase, let's see, Mr. and Mrs. Colby Dempsey of New Orleans, Joanne Labisha of Metairie, Bobby Ann Carter of Harvey, Marie Thompson of New Orleans, Jack Snyder of Pass Christian, Mississippi. And this next break, we're going to be reading all the neighborhoods that called in. And remember, tonight's New Orleans night. After this program, we go to Stories in Stone, which is the history of the Metairie Cemetery. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. Followed by Austin City Limits, which features Rockin' Sidney, who did Don't Mess With My Tutu, and he won a Grammy for the best ethnic recording for that. And also, we're going to wrap up the night with the Neville Brothers. So you want to stay right here on New Orleans Night. And as I said before, I'm personally proud of New Orleans Night because right now, all the native New Orleanians are coming through for us. I knew that they would. I told Mike he was from Iowa. He wasn't sure, but I knew that the New Orleans people were going to come through, and you really are. And call in, and don't forget to let us know your neighborhood, because that's important. I want to see who's going to win tonight. Let's go back over to Mike now. Mike?
Okay, Beth, thank you. I want to remind everyone again, our goal tonight is $9,000. We're probably at about a third of that, $3,000, but it doesn't take long. $9,000 may sound like a large sum of money, but when you stop and imagine how many people have just watched the show, I mean, they run into the thousands, so it doesn't take very many. We get 100 people out of probably, I would imagine, there may be over 40 or 50,000 people who've watched the show, so that's really not a lot of people. Get up and pledge $50, and your night will be a great success. Let me tell you a little bit about the spirit of the people of New Orleans. We sent out a mailer a few months ago and said, we're trying to build some incentive into our membership, and we have a proposition. We have a concept that we would like to try. We would like to set up a challenge grant. In other words, would you be willing to make an additional contribution beyond your membership if we can find new people that will match it? And we were overwhelmed with the response. Almost 1,000 people committed over $30,000. And what it simply means is every time we get a pledge, like we're matching it up with $100 pledges. You call in, send in a $100 pledge, we take $100 out of the fund, and all of a sudden we find ourselves with $200. I think this is an incredible statement about the spirit and how the people in this community feel. So it's a show about your community, about your roots, about your neighbors, about the people, how they talk, how they have fun with it. And I think that uniqueness you can really show now by going to that telephone and making a telephone call. Channel 12 is the public television station for Southeast Louisiana and the Mississippi Gulf Coast. We've been the PBS station in this region for almost 30 years. Our 29th birthday is coming up here in April, and next year we'll be 30 years old. We're one of the oldest public television stations in the country. So we have a rich tradition. We've had an incredible record of past support, and we want to continue it tonight. We want you to go to the phone. We want to make that $9,000, and we'd like to really go beyond that. So we're not going to take any more time. When we come back, we're going to give you a little update on how we are towards our $9,000. And now we have another local program, very, very unique, very, very different, Stories in Stone.
Have your own close encounter and make a donation to the Channel 12 auction. What's good for us is spectacular for you. For more information, call 486-5511.
Stories in Stone is presented for your enjoyment tonight by Lake Lawn Metairie Cemeteries and Funeral Home. It's a city of stone in all of its architectural excellence, a place of beauty, grace, and grandeur, a haven of tranquility. Although it is a cemetery, it is far more than just a burial ground. It's a fascinating witness to the history of New Orleans, a legacy from one generation to the next that illustrates that death does not sever those ties that bind us to the past. It is Metairie Cemetery, and its stories are told in stone. Of all of the cities in this country, New Orleans undoubtedly has the most unique cemeteries, and there are many. First of all, burial here is normally above ground, which was common procedure in the early days of the area due to the soggy ground and lack of pumping stations. Even today, when a low water table makes interment in the earth possible, the earlier custom of above ground prevails. And Metairie Cemetery is a wonderful example of that tradition. Although the cemetery is not the oldest in the city, it is certainly one of the most beautiful. Large, spacious, park-like in appearance, with ample landscaped grounds, which provide a lovely setting for its elegant family tombs and monuments. It also has one unique attribute that no other cemetery in the world can claim. Its land was once the most celebrated racetrack in the entire South, after which it served as a training camp for Confederate soldiers, and then a site for boxing exhibitions prior to becoming a cemetery in 1872. It was here that one of the great horses of all time, Lexington, ran and won, to the thunderous applause of the crowds. He has been immortalized in one of Currier and Ives' most famous prints, and his remains are mounted in the Smithsonian Institute. But that was in the heyday of the city, just before the Civil War and the economic devastation which befell New Orleans in its aftermath. And so, from the brink of the financial disaster of the racetrack, Metairie Cemetery was born. Although it is true that all cemeteries serve as a link from past to present, many of the intriguing stories buried within them have remained unchronicled and thus lost to the generations of the future. Not so with Metairie Cemetery, because of this man, Henri Gandolfo, a rare and unusual person, a modern-day Renaissance man, a writer whose book on the cemetery has kept alive its tales of the rich and poor, famous and infamous, statesmen, soldiers, and historical figures who found their final resting place here. He has devoted 70 years of his life to Metairie Cemetery. His work is highly acclaimed, and his stories bring the city of the dead to life. But in the first days, his association with the cemetery was almost short-lived.
I got the job, and I reported for work on the 4th of January, 1915. And in the first few days, I got along all right, and then one day Mr. Weidland, the senior member and the founder of the company, came here from Stone Mountain, where he was opening up the quarry there, and he dictated a specification to me. And it was about one of the finest jobs that's in the cemetery still today. But I knew nothing about granite or concrete and things like that. And I got all flustered and mixed up, and I came home and I said, I'm quitting. I'm not going back to that job tomorrow. And my grandmother in her firm, Staff Sergeant Manor, told me that if I didn't go on with the job and try it once more, that I wouldn't amount to anything. And I went the next day, tried it over again, wrote the specification, and darn if I haven't been there ever since.
Metairie Cemetery's layout is like no other in the United States. It is a maze of streets and avenues, a vision of sculptured magnificence, all unified by the oval configuration of the old racetrack. And it reflects the various cultures which blend into the potpourri of this city.
It represents the American city, as the St. Louis cemeteries represent the old Creole and colonial city. Metairie Cemetery is the history of the modern New Orleans. But the families who had places in the old cemeteries, as they were completed, they couldn't be used anymore, they moved into Metairie, and we have a complete cross-section of the New Orleans social and business world. We have one section, for instance, that you have almost all Italians. On Avenue B, where the Italian Society tombs, I've called it the Appian Way of Metairie Cemetery, because all the Italian families along there. Then we have a few Spanish, but the greater number of the names, of course, are the American. But Metairie has been known for many years as an outstanding and unique cemetery, because the layout is so entirely different. Take, for instance, the fact that it was a racetrack. When Colonel Harrod offered to make the plans, he went out there and he felt immediately, here's something different. Why don't we follow this layout? We have it right here in front of us. And Metairie Avenue is the 1.16 track. I tell people you're on the back stretch, or you're on the home stretch, because the back stretch is one along that lagoon. You come around the curve, and by the mausoleum of the Morris family, you're coming into the home stretch, and the grandstand was along what is now Metairie Road, just back of the Lacoste Monument. It's not a forest of stone, it's a community of stone.
This cemetery is a tapestry of the bygone days of New Orleans, into which have been woven the stories of powerful figures who dominated and influenced life in this area.
We have Governor W.C.C. Claiborne, who was the first American governor of Louisiana. He was a very close friend of Thomas Jefferson, and as a matter of fact was responsible for Jefferson's election in that famous election of 1800, where Jefferson and Aaron Burr were tied, and the election went into the House of Representatives. And each state delegation caucused and decided who they'd vote for. And Claiborne, who was in Congress from Tennessee, persuaded the Tennessee delegation to let him cast the vote. And he cast the Tennessee vote, and Jefferson won the presidency by one vote.
And there are others of more recent vintage.
as Dr. Rudolf Matas, who was one of the great surgeons of his time. Some of his operations were the first of their kind and have been used as models by surgeons since. We had a very fine medical corps in New Orleans, and several of those famous doctors are buried there. We have several of the ladies who made history in the early days of the women's battle for votes, the Gordon sisters and Mrs. Merrick, Mrs. Jones.
And the tragic war between the states, which so deeply divided the nation, is remembered in stone here, too. But since the cemetery did not exist prior to 1872, 7 years after the conclusion of the Civil War, one might question how this came to be. Henri Gandolfo explains.
They publicized it to begin with by giving cemetery plots to the Confederate veteran organizations, with the understanding that they would build a tomb or a monument within a certain time. And that's where we get the Army of Tennessee up in front, the Army of Northern Virginia in the middle at the rear of the cemetery, and the Washington Artillery Monument. As far as the association tombs, see, 1872 was just 7 years after the war. In the meanwhile, they had formed these organizations to help one another out, provide doctor and medicine, and they built these tombs as a place of burial. And in the Army of Tennessee, it was veteran members of that army that fought from Tennessee down into Georgia and Carolina, and the famous siege of Atlanta and all that. Then the other association, the Army of Northern Virginia, was Robert E. Lee's army that fought in Virginia in the protection of Richmond. So those tombs were open to the use of all Confederate veterans. But many of the graves of soldiers that are there were bodies that were brought in from the battlefields and brought for burial in the family tomb, either during or after the war.
In addition to carrying a roster of the soldiers of the Confederacy, a Union soldier is also buried here. Henry Clay Warmoth, governor of Louisiana in the dark days of Reconstruction between 1868 and 1872, and who resigned to avoid impeachment. His office was assumed by P.B.S. Pinchback, the state's only black governor. It is also a place of interment for royalty. In fact, more kings, that is, kings of Carnival, are buried here than the real kings in Westminster Abbey. 51 men who served as wrecks, and at least 15 queens, have chosen Metairie Cemetery for their final home. Political figures are here by the score. 9 governors of the state of Louisiana. 7 mayors of New Orleans. 4 chief justices of the Louisiana State Supreme Court, as well as countless of the most prominent business and social leaders of the city. In 1926, New Orleans went into mourning for a man who dominated its politics for a quarter of a century. His name, Martin Behrman. When elected as mayor in 1904, Behrman began the longest reign of any mayor before or since. New Orleans probably never had a more effective grassroots mayor, and when he died, more than 20,000 people filed past the bier. If any public official rivaled Martin Behrman in the emotional links that bound him to the citizens of New Orleans, it was certainly Delisep's S. Shep Morrison. His administration was a period of revitalization for the city, which saw the building of its first overpasses, new drainage systems, a new Union Railroad station, and a generally fresh outlook toward commerce and trade. And commerce and trade are represented here also. The cemetery reflects the mercantile successes of 2 New Orleans families at the turn of the century. Men who began with little, yet gained great fortunes. Anthony Monteleone and Louis Grunwald. Anthony Monteleone started with a shoe store at Royal and Bienville. For many years, the name and insignia were still visible in the ceramic tile entrance to what is now an antique store. The hotel which bears his name is a monument to the family's enterprises and is still operated largely by his descendants. Louis Grunwald's first venture was a music store which carried his name well into this century. But his major enterprise was a hotel, the Grunwald Hotel on University Place. Over the years, it became the Roosevelt, and currently, the Fairmont. Another tale of success is that of Eugene Lacoste, a hairdresser by profession with a salon on Bourbon Street. He was also, however, an astute speculator who earned a fortune trading in the stock market. And other stories abound here, stories in which fact and fiction meet and intermingle. One such tale is that of Josie Arlington, one of Storyville's most notorious and successful madams.
She gradually became the queen of the red light district. The story goes that she was rejected by her parents, by her father. She had made a mistake and she came home and they turned her away. I don't know anything about that, but I do know that she was a very successful madam.
But Josie Arlington had the last laugh. She was interred in Metairie Cemetery amongst the socially prominent who would not acknowledge her publicly during her lifetime. Although her remains no longer rest in this tomb, but are buried elsewhere in the cemetery, her elaborate monument, to this day, is one of the most prominent. But her story didn't end there. Legend has it that there were fires glowing within the tomb, supposedly flames of retribution, and that the statue in front of the tomb represented Josie herself as she knocked at her father's door and was rejected for her first mistake. The fires turned out to be a myth. Although there were lights that cast a red glow on the tomb, the source was that of a swinging light on the toll bridge over the New Basin Canal across from the monument. To disperse curiosity seekers, the light was removed, and the fires were magically extinguished. Equally fascinating is the story of the Moriarty Monument, whose enormous proportions and richly carved figures dominate the front corner of the cemetery. It seems that Daniel Moriarty wished to erect a memorial to his wife, Mary, one that would dwarf all the others in Metairie Cemetery. And that he did. When the huge monument was completed and shipped to New Orleans, there was no way to get it to the cemetery. But Irish luck was with him, and the Illinois Central Railroad saved the day by laying a spur track from Carrollton Avenue to the cemetery, and the monument was delivered. And then fiction entered the story. Fiction concerning the 4 female figures at the base of the shaft, and it became a part of the local lore.
The statues were carved in Westerly, Rhode Island, and of faith, hope, and charity. And I wouldn't say not Mrs. Moriarty. The last one was memory. But the story about that being Mrs. Moriarty came from a taxi driver, that is a hack driver in those days, who brought Irwin Cobb out to the cemetery, told him the story, and Cobb wanted to know who the 4th one was. And this old Irishman said, well, and who but Mrs. Moriarty? It rhymed with charity. He accepted it. It sounded good, and that's the story as it goes.
In a place of such beauty and tranquility, it is difficult to believe that lawsuits could mar its peace, but legal judgments have been made relative to those who lie here or the control of their properties. Such a case is that of one of New Orleans' more famous gamblers, Joseph V. Never Smile Harrington, who died under mysterious circumstances after a night of an especially good run of luck at the tables. He never reached home, but nearby residents heard gunfire. Later, he was found dead in his car, which was rammed into a utility pole. His wife ordered a massive but simple tomb for his interment. A judge, however, refused to allow such an expenditure to be charged to his estate. Nonetheless, Mrs. Harrington had her way and won out. The monument was completed and paid for in cash in the dead of the night. Among the cemetery's unusual memorials are two commemorating the deaths of members of prominent local families whose lives were claimed by the sea. Mrs. Jules Aldeget, her daughter and grandchild, and Madame Pauline Costa and her daughter Angèle had all booked passage on the ill-fated French steamship La Bourgogne. On July 4th, 1898, the luxurious vessel was accidentally rammed by a British freighter in a fog off the coast of Nova Scotia, and they perished in the tragic collision. And from this disaster emerged a custom which is honored to this day as a rule of the sea for ships which carry passengers.
The monument of Angèle Loglass is really the genesis of one of the great legal decisions, a landmark decision on who died first. She and her mother, Mrs. Loglass, made reciprocal wills, and they left New York on the French steamer La Bourgogne, and outside of New York Harbor, off the coast of Newfoundland, it was rammed by a British freighter, and in a half hour it went down, and and about 250 people were lost. From that event came two decisions. The first was women and children first, because the horror of the thing was the crew fighting to get on the boats to the exclusion of passengers. So that law of, not law, but the custom of women and children first evolved from that.
Metairie Cemetery is over 100 years old, and all along tourists and natives alike have been awed by the beauty of its 150 acres and the impressive monuments that are placed there.
We have flocks and flocks of angels, and whole panoply of saints.
And there is stone, marvelous pieces of polished marble and granite from various parts of the world, carved by the great craftsmen who took pride in the quality of their work. These artists are rapidly becoming extinct. New Orleans is distinctive in that it has had a different attitude toward dying than other parts of the country. The early Creoles saw death as the ultimate result of life, an event to be remembered and commemorated, and the tapestry that wove generations together. In the old days, entire families picnicked at their burial grounds on weekends and holy days. They had the wisdom to foresee that death is a part of physical life, a bridge to a spiritual life, and accorded it such respect. They did not minimize their grief, but looked forward to an eternal afterlife, a continuation, as does Henri Gandolfo, who typifies this attitude and who has counseled families coming to the cemetery for so many years.
I'm sort of a family relic, you might say. They've known me for, I dealt with Grandma and with Mama and Papa, but so they still come back.
And what has his association with Metairie Cemetery meant to him?
It has enabled me to be of help to people at a time when they needed help. So many people that come don't know just where they stand in those moments after death. And I've been able to counsel people, to help them, to make suggestions, and even to keep people from spending more than they should at times when they were in such a state that they didn't know just exactly what they were doing. And it's been a great thing for me, and I've put it on my tomb that if I have given help to one person in sorrow, that reward is sufficient.
Henri Gandolfo has chosen to be buried in Metairie Cemetery, and his philosophy on the end of life reflects his 88 years of living.
I'm interested in living, but I'm not fearing dying.
Metairie Cemetery has always mirrored the economic ups and downs of the area. Periods of prosperity produced lavish tombs, and times of recession dictated simpler memorials. But there is a pervasive thread, and that is the very human need to be remembered, the innate wish that one's life does not go unnoted. And although the cemetery is destined to be old, it is also committed to remaining modern and to serving the contemporary needs of people in all walks of life. Eternity has always held a fascination for mortal man, the desire to leave more than a footprint in the sands of time, to be buried with family members, and to be remembered as having been a unique and significant human being who made sacrifices for his fellow men and his community. Orleanians have always seemed to have the ability to accept the inevitability of death gracefully. Henri Gandolfo illustrates this feeling, and Metairie Cemetery provides the style and class for its implementation.
Stories in Stone, an incredible documentary with some amazing factual information, and really a beautiful, beautiful place, and a great many things on there I'm sure a lot of people maybe did not know, or certainly had forgotten about. So, hi, I'm Mike Labonia, and I'd like to welcome you to Festival 86, the time of year when we come to you and ask you to help support public television as the viewer of public television. Tonight's New Orleans night, and we have our operators here, and all the operators, of course, are from New Orleans, and Beth mentioned earlier, I think all the people here are also native New Orleanians, so call up and talk to one of your neighbors. If you will become a member of Channel 12 at the $60 level, we have a little something that we would like to give you as a way of saying thank you. And what it is, it's this nice tote bag. Proclaim yourself as a Channel 12 supporter with this sturdy, convenient tote bag with its blue logo and strap. This bag would be ideal for carrying books, important day-to-day carry-alongs, and just about anything we have. And you can call in right now and pledge $60. We have a limited number of these, and you can pledge $5 a month to get this bag. It's really nice. It's a heavy canvas bag, and if you're a student, it would be terrific to carry books. I guess you could make groceries in it, like Beth would say, and go shopping. So there are a lot of things you could do with this thing, and I mean, it is It's really a nice bag. And it's just kind of our way of saying thank you for helping support Channel 12. And when you walk down the street, people will say, hey, you know, there's a supporter of Channel 12. So it gives us a chance to do a little advertising. So whatever, if you're walking on the neutral ground, wherever it might be, this little bag is something I think will come in very, very handy. So $60, the installment plan. The operators are here. You know, from time to time, we mention various ways, various levels, various little premiums that we give back to you. Well, they have all this information. They know. So if we confuse you or you're uncertain of what we're saying, we understand that, how that could happen. But they don't. There's no confusion there. Once you make the phone call, the operators will tell you exactly what can be done. Something else I'd like to tell you about, again, we've been mentioning tonight the various types of support that we get from our community. For example, I mentioned earlier where over 900 people set aside $30,000 extra so that we could use that as a matching incentive, and that really worked terrific. Another thing that we have here is an employee matching gift company. On here, I think there are listed at least 100 companies in our viewing area in this region who have agreed that they will match dollar for dollar any contribution made by an employee of theirs. So, I mean, this, again, I think shows the kind of support that WYES does receive from the community, and in this case, by the businesses that operate here. So, when you become a member, you will get in, you will receive this little yellow slip right here, and it's called the Matching Employee Gift Companies. Now, all we like to have you do is you take a look at that and see if your company is listed anywhere on there. If it is, you take it to your personnel office, and they will match the amount of money that you match. So that's what you're doing, in essence, is if you give us $50, it translates to $100. So it's a good way to double your pledge. We've got a great Austin City Lemon Show coming up tonight with a couple of more people from this area, groups from this area. But right now, you know, we need to get these telephones ringing because we were trying to make $9,000, and we're just, you know, we're not even at the halfway mark yet, and we've got to get started here pretty quick if we're going to be successful and we're going to make that goal. So we'd like to have you go to the telephone, dial the number 486-7311. If you live outside of the area and it requires a long-distance call, we pay for the telephone call, so you don't have to pay for the call. The operators are here. These fine folks have given up their evening to come down and help. So show your gratitude both to us and to them by calling them and becoming a member of Channel 12. Beth is in the studio with me, and she has a couple of other incentives that hopefully will make you become a member of Channel 12.
Thanks a lot, Mike. I wonder why these phones aren't ringing. Do you think it could be that you're from Iowa and they're waiting for a New Orleanian to get on this? It could be. He said neutral ground, he said making groceries, but that wasn't good enough. But here I am. I'm from New Orleans. I'm from Lakeview. And by the way, I'd like to tell you the results of our poll before. We got the most pledges in from the 9th Ward. So yay for the 9th Ward. They were followed closely by the 8th Ward, Old Metairie, West Bank, the Irish Channel, Uptown, the 15th Ward, and the 4th Ward. And no one's called in yet from Lakeview, but it's not too late. We've heard one person from Uptown. We know there are a lot more people uptown that watch Channel 12. So call us at 486-7311 and let us know your neighborhood. Right now, I'd like to tell you a little bit about a very special offer from our good friends at the Video and Computer Connection. If you will pledge $100 or $10 for 10 months, you can break that down into easy installments. You can get a lifetime video club membership in the Video and Computer Connection, plus one free movie rental per month for a year, and that's at the $100 level. Now, if you'll pledge $12 for 12 months and make that a $144 contribution, you will receive a lifetime membership in the Video and Computer Connections Video Club, one free movie rental per month for 1 year, plus, now listen to this, one free movie from a selected list of titles for you to keep for your very own for the rest of your life, and a VHS or a beta. That's for $12 for 12 months or a pledge of $144. So that's the $10 a month and the $12 a month. And we'd like to thank our good friends at the Video and Computer Connection. They're a community-minded business, and they're supporting public television in New Orleans. And we hope you will, too. I'm very proud of New Orleans Night. This is something we tried once before, and it was a huge success. As I said before, we gauge things like New Orleans Night, we gauge Nature Night, and we know that you might like nature programs and drama and the rest of that. But we're very proud to say that we produce hundreds of hours of local programs each and every year here at WYES. And it's for you, New Orleans, programs like Varsity Quiz Bowl, programs like Informed Sources, like Chappie Goes to Mardi Gras, The Great Chefs of New Orleans, The Great Chefs of New Orleans 2, and a new special coming up next month, New Orleans Unmasked. All these are programs that we produce for you, the community, and they're not seen anywhere else. Now, our Great Chef series is, and that makes people want to come to New Orleans and eat at the great restaurants we have here, but it's done by your community station. Tonight's New Orleans night, and tonight's the night that would like to hear from all the native New Orleanians out there. Before we go back, the phones are starting to pick up now. I'd like for Mike to show you that tote bag one more time. Remember, if you call in at the $60 level, you'll receive the tote bag. Mike, you want to show that to him again?
Okay, here it is. The little tote bag with the Channel 12 logo on it. It's a heavy canvas. It's got this great handle. You can carry all kinds of things. You can carry bell peppers in this too, and there's silver dimes and whatever. So there are a lot of things you can put in this bag. And we'd like to have you have this little carrying bag because what it will tell everyone who sees you with it is they will know that you have helped support the programming on Channel 12. Now, you get this little bag for $60, and you can get it on the installment plan, which means you can do it for $5 a month. Let me give you a little information about our installment plan. Now, when you pledge $60 or more, you can use our installment plan. This will let you pay off your membership amounts in several monthly payments instead of paying it all at one time. And some people find that very, very convenient, so it's just like paying your regular bills. With the handy installment plan, you can pay off your membership in up to 12 months or as little as 2. The choice is yours. Now, here are some of the categories. The one I mentioned for the bag is $60 or $5 a month. You can pledge $100 and pay $10 a month. You can pledge $144 and pay $12 a month. You can pledge $180, pay $15 a month. You can pledge $20 a month, which comes to $240. And the nice thing is, if you do it on the installment plan, we even send you a monthly reminder and a return envelope. So this is the kind of things you got to say, well, if I do it on the installment plan, I may forget it. The reminder comes every month, just like the utility bill or whatever else, your automobile payment. And more people are doing that because that's the way most of us pay. And so that is something it was incorporated a few years back into the way to pay for your membership. Now, we got some great programming coming up for you tonight with groups from this area. This is a special Austin City Limits program that you're about to see. And the first segment is going to be Rockin' Sydney. So let's go to Austin City Limits right now.